to one and all present here. Where there is unity, there is victory. Remembering these words, I'd like to state that I'm here to stand for the motion that India needs a national language. I believe that India needs a national language because having a national language promotes unity. It promotes national integration. It helps in the better understanding of the culture, the heritage, the rich and diverse culture that India has. It provides better job opportunities for the length and breadth of all Indian citizens, and also it provides better efficiency when we're talking about government administrations, and also promotes business. When I'm saying that we need a national language, I'm also trying to state and establish the fact that by having a national language, we'll be able to create a national culture, a national identity through which we'll be able to represent ourselves in the global arena in this day and age of globalization. Thank you so much.
You're done. Against the motion, Olivia, your time starts now.
India is a country with much more rich diversity in culture and language. India does not need a national language. To begin with, language is an identity, and imposing an alien identity on a community of people leads to ethnic conflict, which in turn affects the national integrity of our country. Secondly, imposing a national language infringes upon the democratic principles enshrined in our constitution in Article 29, which states that any community has the right to preserve and promote their language, and the state will not impose any external culture upon them. Thirdly, recognizing many languages instead of one national language shows that the regional areas have representation and have their own voice. To conclude, I'd like to say that imposing one national language will lead to alienation, marginalization, and more importantly, it ignores India's linguistic diversity.
You done? Good luck, both of you. You have 5 minutes right now, and your time starts now.
Like B.R. Ambedkar has said, one language unites the people and two languages divide them. According to the statistics provided by the Bhasha Research and Public Center, it has stated that the lack of a common language in India is a main problem when we are talking about governance. Hence, establishing a national language will aid in this process, and I'd also like to debunk the notion of the opposition by stating that imposition of national language or a particular language is not what we are trying to establish while we are saying that India needs a national language.
Clear.
The fact of the matter remains that India does not have a majority spoken language. The majority being 43%, that is not a majority. And as such, the criteria for national languages state that the majority must be able to speak and converse in that language, and that should be the main language for publication, which is not true to a country like India.
Out to you.
As of now, it might not be true to a country like India, but by the emergence of a national language, while we implement a national language, that can be possible when the knowledge of a national language, or whatever particular language we are selecting, will be provided to the grassroots level.
Out to you.
In a country as large as India, with such a high population, the implementation cost and the time that is taken to implement a national language is completely ridiculous and impractical.
Please.
When we're speaking, again, I'd like to come back to the point that governance, when you're talking about the language gap, governance is a very big issue that we're facing right now. So when we have a national language, this can be overcome. So are we saying that we'll have to prioritize diversity, or should we ensure that people of our nation will be able to understand governance and administration for their betterment?
Out to you, please.
The main purpose of language is communication, which means that the people should be able to understand what is happening. In a country like India, where there is no majority spoken language, to make sure that the minorities also understand is why we converse in our regional languages and in our mother tongues. So when we impose a national language, it is obviously said that there'll be people who do not speak that national language as well. So how will we effectively communicate with those people?
Out to you.
Okay, here I'd like to state the statistics that India is a nation that is having a population of 1.4 billion that is growing at a 0.81 growth rate. So in such a nation, we have the possibility of raising one particular language, that is our national language, to the status of a linked language globally, which will be of much prestige to India. So this is being hindered when we are going for the argument that we do not need a national language.
Clear.
There has been surveys conducted by the World Economic Forum which state that having a linked language is the most detrimental thing to a business. Especially business in India will now have to change what they have done into the national language, and that implementation process will lead to economic loss.
Please.
According to the World Bank, 42% of growth in the economic sector can be seen if there is a national language. So these were also statistics that were provided. And here I'd like to state that when we are giving a linked language, or when we are having a common language, it helps in unity. It helps. Language turns out to be a tool that will connect each and every Indian.
Please.
India right now does not have a national language, and yet we stand at the 5th position in the world's largest economy, and we also stand 3rd in the purchasing power parity. So right now we are thriving despite our linguistic diversity. So what's the need for a national language?
Oh
I
dear.
believe that with a national language, we can give a further push to such the position that India has today. And I'd also like to state that according to the European Commission, it has been found that there will be better economic growth when there is a national language. Again, coming back to your point that we'll be moving ahead from where we are today.
Okay, Olivia, kindly don't shoot us questions. Frame us points, please. Yes.
It also stands to reason that in India, we thrive on democracy, and our democratic principles ensure that a person's fundamental rights, that is the ability to speak and converse in their own language, is protected. A national language imposition will lead to this being infringed.
Oh
As
dear.
mentioned earlier, we're not trying to impose any language on anybody. Here again, the constitution protects the linguistic minorities. And here I'd like to provide an example. In Jharkhand, there is a channel, local channel called the Asur Mobile Radio. Asur Mobile Radio is a radio program conducted in the Asur language that only 7,000 to 8,000 people speak.
Okay,
Hence,
Shreya,
it's a
come
prime
with
example
new
for
points.
the
That is clear. So don't, than explaining, come with new points. Yes, please.
I'd also like to say that the promotion of cultural or regional films or cultural activities like books, movies, etc. are done in regional languages to ease communication and to get their message across to the masses. So this is not possible with a national language which is simply not, it cannot be imposed in a country like India. Like I said earlier, 43% is the maximum spoken language, is the maximum
Oh, dear.
population of
I would love for the opposition to move ahead from the point that India having a national language would be imposition of a national language, or it will be the erasure of other minority languages. This is not what we are trying to do. The government, the constitution, everything, the entire system protects other languages, but all we are trying to do is ensure that we have an identity, we have a flag bearer for our own culture and heritage.
Oh dear.
I'd like to remind you that in India,
And here, time up. Now it's time for the jury and now to the judges, please.
Do you think that the government should declare a language as our national language through a parliamentary legislation?
Yes, I strongly agree that we need a national language and it should be enacted according to the parliament itself. The reason for this is cited below, as cited earlier, was that, again, unity, national integration, a better cohesive society that we can see. And moreover, when India, today we are the G20 leader. So in such a scenario, we need to represent ourselves. We need to say that, okay, this is what India is. This rich culture, heritage, all of this can be in a capsule form. We need to give answers. Okay, this is what we are. So I believe that we really need a national language.
Thank you so much, Shreya. Thank you, sir. And it's your turn. Olivia, off to the jury, please.
You said that one of the requisites for a national language is that the majority should be speakers of a national language, right? And you said Hindi is spoken only by 43%. So does that, do you imply that if Hindi speakers reach 50% or 51%, you are willing to accept Hindi as the national language?
so in a democracy like India, we function on the principle that we should take everyone together and not just one section. So having a national language really beats that purpose. National language in a country like India is just not done because despite having 50% or more people who speak in Hindi, we forget that there is other people who do not speak in that language. So ultimately, we will be imposing an alien language on this section of people, which cannot be done in a democratic country like India.
Good luck, both of you. Thank you so much. Kindly come forward, girls. Kindly come forward and shake your hands.